All right, hi, I'm Mike Gallagher. I joined App Inventor Foundation about a year ago and spent most of that time upgrading Blockly, a couple versions, 11 and 12, and throughout that I ended up deciding to write some Playwright tests for multiselect. So I'm gonna go through some of the kind of things I picked up on the way. Warning, it's all pseudocode. Mark told me this would have been a great presentation a few years ago. But here we go. So what I had to deal with was a lot of times the tests rely on events, but because the events are delayed by an animation frame and a timeout, you kind of have to deal with that and make sure the tests wait for them. So this is just an approximation of the Blockly code. And so what I did was I have some helper methods. So what this method does is it just adds a change listener and kind of allows the events to settle down by requesting animation frame, set timeout. So this every test action is wrapped in this act command so that you can rely on the events if you need to check them or if they matter for behavior. There's things like cut and paste, rely on it, undo, redo, some of the multi-select stuff. And I just had to add an error because there was some bugs in the code that would cause a infinite loop of events. So this just catches it and prints it in a way that's easy to debug. So now I'm going to go through loading blocks, which is another helper that I wrote. And this one here, one thing I had to deal with, there's some pictures coming, so it'll get a little better, is I had to do the y-index, just kind of increment it by 1, so that when I ran cleanup, the blocks would be in the expected order. And then scroll to centers, just because I'm moving blocks different directions, just gives you a good starting point. So without that, oh, actually I have some other stuff. Okay, so what did I do here? Oh, this is just the code that's going to run in the next picture. Sorry. So you can see you've got, I'm loading a Boolean with a math, arithmetic, logic, compare. But this just gives you an idea at the beginning of the test what you can pass to this method. So this test is just called load blocks. So without that fix, they just all do that, which isn't so great. So with that helper, it just gives you your blocks nice centered in the middle. So that was helpful for testing. And then we have a get blocks. Something with Playwright is this page evaluate. It's hard to cross over that, so it's really hard to do helper methods and break this up. You could inject code into the page, but that's not ideal. So it ended up to be a very large method. So I'm kind of breaking it up here, but that was unavoidable. But the point of this method is to be able to get the blocks that are on the page so you can look at the various properties and assert them in your tests. And so one thing, it has like a notion of a blocks query, so you can figure out what block you want, a block selector, workspace selector. So I had to support all these different workspaces, if it's in a mutator. And so let's check that one out. This is it had to be a case statement once again, because we can't share code, so it got a little bit funky. And this is just going through. The mutator was a bit of a special case, because you've got to get onto that workspace. And here we go. This is just some searching for the block. You can either look through top blocks or all blocks. And then you've got the last part of it, which is I had to map various properties of the blocks to JSON so we could take a look at it. So that's just various properties. You've got the bounds for doing some drag measurements. Center top is a good click point. And then various things I wanted to test, the fields. And yeah, this is just the way I've calculated the properties. One thing was switching between Playwright wants SVG coordinates, so had to switch everything from the Blockly coordinates to the SVG. This is just the calculation for center top. I spent a lot of time trying to find the perfect click point that you can click on any block. Still haven't found it. This one works for most blocks. This is just various grabbing those other methods and the fields. So nothing too interesting here. And here are the tests here. So this is a select test. So this is where it gets easier to read because of the helpers. So clicking a child selects it. So you load your blocks, and then you just use get block to find the child by ID. We want to click the center top. And you can check that it's highlighted. I have these helper methods like get highlighted blocks. I'm expecting it to be the child. Get selected ID, I'm expecting it to be the child. And then we just run the test. Now we're going to do drag. This one's a little bit more complicated, but this is just dragging block, snaps it to grid. So what we're doing is we're moving it a half grid space and then making sure it ends up one grid space over and that it drags. So you can see the to be close to is important because there's a lot of rounding, and that solves that issue. And let's see what happens here. So I'm going to drag, and we'll see on the next one it's snapped over. So that's that test. Now we've got the mutator. Sorry, I'm looking at the slides a lot, I realize. So this one is selecting a block in a mutator workspace. So we're going to, from a procedure, we're going to grab the block and we're going to make sure it gets highlighted and expect the highlighted blocks to have a length of 1, expect the selected one to be there. So here we go. It's going to open the select it. So that's it. And then the trash was another one. Load your blocks. You can drag it over to the trash. Have a helper to get that click target for the trash. Get all block IDs here. So you can see that the tests, they're pretty easy to read if you get the helpers right. And here we go. Just pop it in the trash. And that's it. I think I blew through that pretty fast. So yeah, questions on any of this? The helpers they're in an open source repo. They're in the multiselect repo at MIT App Inventor, so if anyone wants to use them. But it was super helpful for that. So. Yeah.